Hello everyone and welcome to another What I Think review, and today we're going to be looking at the brand new Character Options exclusive Wraith Warriors set. So we saw this teased quite a while back, so it's great to see it finally released. So in this we have, this is going to be interesting to pronounce, Constable Zreeg and Sergeant Zogroth. I am just going to refer to them as the Wraith Warriors from this point on, because I am not trying to pronounce that every single time because I will make a mess of it. But yes, so we have a lovely 2-pack with 2 individual Wraith Warriors in it. Really nicely presented in the box. Box is actually a bit bigger than the previous release we have. I do have one here. When I say previous release, to give you an idea of the Meep set. As you can see, it's quite a bit larger than this set, which makes sense given the fact that the the figures themselves are actually bigger, and it's nice to see them sort of in scale. I'm just going to try and put these back so I don't knock them over while I'm recording. He says, nearly knocking them over. So yeah, really nicely presented in the box. We've got a lovely looking backdrop. We've got a couple of accessories in here as well. So if we turn it round on the back, you can see we've got a lovely bit of information about the episode, and then also what exactly is in this set. One of the interesting things, two of the interesting things which I want to highlight on the back of here actually, is a couple of features which we're going to be interesting to look at. But so one is the light pipe eyes. I really want to do a close-up on that later because that is something which I think is actually a really nice feature. It also says they are presented here as 2 characters with their own distinctive paint details. Now obviously on the front initially they don't look overly different. There are a couple of minor differences which I will point out as we go through the review. But they do look sort of similar, but again they look similar in the episode, to be fair, so I don't think there's really a huge amount of difference that's really necessarily needed. But let's have a look at what we've got actually inside the box. So just want to do a quick close-up on this backdrop as well, because we've got a nice little additional backdrop, always nice to see in these sets, which is the city street with some destroyed cars and obviously a couple of the Wraith Warriors in there. No little Easter eggs on this one, which sometimes obviously does get sneaks in and things like that. But again, really nice to see these backdrops because they do add that little extra touch, and I know that a lot of people have started to use these as sort of display backdrops, so it's always really nice to see that we've got these sort of little additions to these sets. It's the little additions like that I think really just sort of lift them up and make them stand out just that little bit more. So I'm going to actually review these figures sort of individually because I've got one on its stand, because these do come with stands, which I'm going to get back into in a minute. But first of all, let's have a look at the articulation we've got. So you've got the usual sort of articulation that you'd expect, but there's a few sort of interesting differences here to see what there is. So obviously the gun is a separate accessory. The gun piece looks very nice, very nicely detailed, and literally just sort of sandwiches into the hands, so it fits nicely in there. And obviously because of the way that the gun is molded, you've got a bit of sort of give into sort of which position you want to put it in. In terms of articulation, so you've got a little bit on the feet, so the feet do a sort of 360-degree swivel. You've also got a little bit of back and forth on there, not a huge amount. You've got a basic ball joint with a good amount on the leg there, and then on the hip joint, middle joint here again, you've got a good bit of articulation. It does appear that there is a joint that lets it go back and forth, but I'm going to be honest, I can't really get it to move very much. It's very slight. Around the hip again, you've got the sort of hip joint is a bit of a sort of swivel on it. You've then got a bit of a torso swivel. You can hear a few clicks there as well where it's obviously a bit stiff, so that's probably part and parcel of it. In terms of the arm, it's got a good swivel. You've also got a joint on there, and then underneath the shoulder you've got a good bicep swivel joint on there. Head is on a peg as well, so you've got a fair degree of articulation sort of on the head that lets it move. And then on this arm as well, you've got the same joint here on the shoulder, so you can sort of have it out at different angles. It does have again a joint here that lets you turn it this way, but it also seems to have this same sort of joint that lets you straighten it out. But again, because of the limitations of the mould, you can't quite do that, but the open sort of claw bit at the end also does open up, which is very nice. And as I said, these do come with stands, so I'm going to bring them both in now to put them on the stands, because again, I do just want to sort of highlight a couple of things about the stand on this, which I think is again worth pointing out. So here I've got them both on their stands, so the stands literally do just fit into the bottom of the feet. It's great to see that we've got stands with these, because unsurprisingly, these do not stand without the stands. Now, again, I know that some people might sort of regard that as a bit of an issue for the toy, etc. But in all fairness, I wouldn't put that down to character, because at the end of the day, the design of these may well work as a costume, but they are very spindly-legged, very sort of upper centre of gravity. It is not surprising that this design does not lend itself necessarily well to a particularly stable toy, because all of the weight is up this end. So I'm not going to put that as a mark against character, because they didn't come up with a design for this monster, and there's always going to be limitations and things when you extrapolate things like that. So, again, don't stand without their stands, but it's not unsurprising. The only thing I would say that I would have think may have been a little bit better would be to make the stands just that little bit bigger to give a better foot, because I mean it really doesn't, like, I'm literally, what have I got? I've got something that's just the tiniest of tiny things to put a bit of pressure on. So literally a little paintbrush here, right? So I'm literally just holding it between two fingers. They do have still a fair bit of weight up the top, so even with the stands they are a little bit unstable, and I perhaps would have made the stands just that little bit bigger to give them a little bit more stability. Again, it's a very minor thing, and I'm not going to make that sound like it's a saying, oh well, there's no reason that you shouldn't buy these because they don't stand up properly. That's not what I'm saying at all. Again, I wish to make it clear, I have had to buy these. I have not been given these as a advanced sample or anything like that. As a customer who has paid money for them, I do feel obliged, as I said, I've said this many times before, to point out both the positives and the negatives. These sets vastly have a lot more positives than negatives, I have to say. They are absolutely beautiful looking figures, but that is probably one very minor negatives that I've found, is that perhaps stand could have been a little bit bigger, and I say that purely in a constructive criticism way. It doesn't detract at all from them. Looking at them both side by side here, so this is how you see them in the box. Now, it did say that they have some distinctive different paints on them to make them stand out a little bit bigger, to make them stand out a little bit different. And obviously it is a little bit difficult to see. However, what is worth noting, and I don't know how well this comes up on camera, I really hope it does, but the one on the right, so these are the way that they're displayed in the box, or at least the way they're displayed in my box. This one has a lot more sort of weathering on the lower half of the body, but also the torso pieces, they are slightly different molds, and the way that you can tell this, it doesn't look very obvious when you're trying to look for it, but if you look at the pattern detailing of these sort of pock marks and dots, they are different, two different sculpts and things like that. So there is a very, very minor difference in there, which does sort of make them stand out to each other. But again, personally, I have no, I think you could have had two of exactly the same in the same set and it still would have worked. But it's nice to see that they're, again, it's the little variations like that and things that are trying to be done which do make a difference. But the one thing that I really do want to try and capture on camera now is one of the things that it's such a minor thing, but it's one of these things that I absolutely adore it, and it is the light pipe eyes. Okay, I really hope this works. So I've drawn the curtains, I am just now going to turn off the light, and I do have here my little pen light, as you can see. So if I put the light on top of the eye, hey, there you go. So basically all it is, essentially in the head, the eyepiece basically has like a little sort of tube shape that runs almost in a sort of C, half C shape, a quarter circle up to the top. And in the top of the head, as you can see, there is this little red lens bit here. Now obviously the little red lens bit in the head does mean that, that there is a sort of big red lens in the head. But then obviously it means that if you put your finger or you put a light at the top, the eyes do light up. And I have to say, personally, I absolutely love that little feature. You know, because what that really reminds me of, and maybe this is a generational thing, because I know this has been done on many sort of different toys and things over the years, but when Terminator 2, or the Terminator 1, but more so Terminator 2 was out in the 90s, there were quite a few sort of Terminator toys that had that same feature, where you basically just had the little bit of red light in the head and you put it under the light and his eyes lit up, and it was absolutely fantastic. And there's a real sense of nostalgia with this, and I think it works so well. You know, the idea of having the eyes light up like that is just absolutely fantastic. And I'm sure there are going to be people out there who are going to say, well, it would have been nice if they could have done that with lights and electronics and things like that, and I understand that, but at the same time I can also understand how much more expensive that would have been. You know, and having it like this, it's such a simple, brilliant idea to you know, to do. And I think these are still, although this is, you know, marketed as a collector's toy set, you've got to bear in mind that these are still toys, and they do seem to need to have some sort of play value, and that is the sort of thing I think that, you know, would interest kids. And, you know, for collectors who have them in the box, you can't notice this, you know, red, you know, bit on top of the head when they're in the box, and if you've got them out of the box and you don't like it, you can just paint over it. You know, it's really not that big of a, you know, it's not that big of a inaccuracy, I would have said. To have such a brilliant little feature, I think it's worth just that little thing. And even now, you know, I'm looking at it on the camera, and even looking at it in hand, and you can barely notice it's there. You really can't. You really can barely notice it's there. But I absolutely love that feature. I think it's really is one of the things that's really made this set. It's really made this set stand out, because it's such a small little detail, but it is just one of those details that really makes the set stand out from anything else that we've seen before. You know, and I say that given the fact that we've never had Wraith, where this set already stands out, but to have a little extra thing like that just really is a sort of, rather appropriately, for the saying, given the fact that the eyes are red, a cherry on the top of the cake. So obviously, in my usual fashion, I have one in box and one out of box, but, you know, I have to say, looking at them like this as well, this is such a great army building set. You know, you can really have a good set of Wraith Warriors for this. I think they look absolutely... I keep saying Wraith Warriors, they're Wrath Warriors. You all know what I mean. I keep pronouncing it Wraith. They look absolutely fantastic, and again, I am tempted to pick up another set and almost have a little army of them. But again, I appreciate that these are limited sets. I don't want to sort of necessarily buy more than my fair share, because I think these will be, again, quite a popular set. Maybe in the long future I may pick up another set to put them on display, but I really do like that we have got quite a nice little collection of 60th anniversary figures now. And I know that some people have said, well, you know, it would have been nice if we could have had them closer to the 60th, and I semi-agree with that sentiment, but at the same time, I'd rather have them late than not at all. And these have really, I think these really have lived up to the initial images that we had of them, and they have been well worth the wait to you know, to get them. But yeah, that is pretty much all I've got to say. Really nice set, would definitely recommend picking them up. As always, I hope you all enjoyed this video. Like, subscribe, share, it really helps me out a lot, and be sure to check out the description below for a link to my Patreon. I've had a little bit of a reshuffle, so there is only the one tier on there at the moment, but for that smallest tier you can get your name at the end of my videos, and all of your donations are greatly received. It really helps with the running of the channel. I salute you all, and I will see you in another video very soon.